my winter months in Minnesota, where I also have a residence. So I do a lot of riding in the country and in the woods, as well as a lot of city riding in Minneapolis when I'm in Minnesota in the winter. So I've been in urban environments. I have family pretty much all throughout Wisconsin, brothers and sisters from La Crosse to Medford to Madison, and Wisconsin Rapids is where I grew up. I have two boys currently studying in Madison, so I do get around the state quite often and get to ride all over the place. Let's see here. So why ride in the winter? Well, every day is a great day to ride your bike. And you've probably all heard this before living in Wisconsin. There's really no such thing as bad weather. There's just bad dressing. So if you get the equipment right, winter riding can be every bit as interesting and enjoyable and safe as riding in the dry months. So reasons to ride your bike 365. Well, one is momentum. For a lot of people, they spend a lot of time in the summer months riding around, a lot of time in fall riding around, so it's great to just keep the wheels turning throughout the year. Just because a little snow comes down or it gets a little bit colder, it doesn't mean you have to stop your riding momentum. Obviously, it's good for your health. Riding helps build a habit, and the daily habit of riding helps build good health and indeed happiness that follows from that. It can be adventurous to ride in weather other than perfect weather. I can't say I'm a big fan of riding in the rain or the slush, but there are plenty of days when the roads aren't so heavily covered with snow and there's a little bit of snow coming down, and can make a really interesting riding experience. It's also convenient, especially if you're in an urban area. Getting from point A to B on a short trek, if it's a mile or two or less, riding your bike can be a lot easier than simply starting up a car and bothering with parking. So there's a convenience factor. It's a lot cheaper. Jump on your bike and ride a few miles than it is to fill up a tank of gas. And then there's a car maintenance that goes along with it. It can also be, a carefree living experience. Gives you the freedom to be outdoors when, in the winter months we spend a lot of time indoors. So it's great to get outside and get some fresh air. And it's fun. Riding your bike pretty much any time of the year. All sorts of fun. Anybody else have a good reason to ride 365? Who all rode their bikes today?
I did.
There's one. You.
I did.
Okay, great. 2.
3.
Nice.
4.
Okay, that's pretty good. I think we've got 15 people attending, so 30% is a pretty good number. Oh, well, I did. I rode my bike, so we're a little bit above that. This is from La Crosse. I inherited this presentation from Carolyn, the Southwest Regional Director for the Bike Fed, who hails from La Crosse, and so these are La Crosse statistics here, but truly it's almost never quite as bad as it seems in the winter. So these are days where the temperature exceeds 32, so days in the month above freezing. And you can see, pretty much every day in November, March, and April is going to be above freezing. And then December and February, 25 to 50% of the month, is just barely going to get above freezing, and then January, of course, is going to be your brutally cold month. But you can certainly pick and choose. You may not be above 32, but if it's above zero and it's not super windy, it certainly can be tolerable as long as you get the clothing right. Anybody ridden below zero before?
Yeah, I think 4 below for me.
4 below, nice. Well, I'll be interested in getting your comments here when we get to the attire section. Which bike should you ride? Well, you get into all sorts of conversations about how to ride a bike in the winter, and just about any bike can be, in a small way, modified to be capable of riding in the winter. The bikes with internal gearing do tend to work pretty well, just because they don't get exposed to the elements as much, and you can get internally geared 137s. I think I even saw a 10-speed over the summer that had an automatic on it, believe it or not. But if you can cover up the gearing, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble, because of the snow and salt and sand that get picked up into the gearing. The fewer exposed parts, the better. Single speeds work pretty well. Perhaps not a fixie. Without a free wheel, you're kind of limited with your braking capability if you're just going to be stuck with a rear kickback. So dual brakes, better than a single kickback brake, and disc brakes, of course, going to be a little bit better sheltered from the elements than your caliper brakes. Mountain bikes, need very little modification to be capable to move around in the snow and dirt and sand. A little more of a patch on the road is helpful. Doesn't hurt to drop a few pounds of air pressure in the tires. If you ride your mountain bike a lot on the road, you may have 35 or 40 pounds of pressure in it for a comfortable ride in the dry and warmer months. Might want to drop that down to 25 or 30 to give you a little softer tread and a little bit of a wider patch on the road. Fenders can be easily added. These days you can pick up a pair of plastic fenders for about $25. They clip on pretty easily, front and back, for mountain bikes. Or you can change your summer bike into a winter bike. Swap the tires out, change the slick tires to something with a little more tread, add some fenders and lights, or just get another bike, like a fat bike. And I'm curious now. Maybe we can use this little chat portion of the webinar tool here to give me a yay or nay if you've got a fat bike. Anybody out there own a fat bike?
I have one on
I've got one.
You've got one? And did you buy it specifically to ride in snow or in winter?
That is correct, and I have found that it is so much fun that I've ditched my regular mountain bike and I ride the fat bike year-round.
That's not uncommon. I've heard that from other people too.
Yeah, it's a great ride. In fact, I have not smiled this much since I got my first Schwinn Stingray as a birthday present when I was 6.
Yeah, nice. Do you take it off-road as well, or do you use it as a commuter?
No, I use it off-road in the dirt tracks down here in Lake Geneva. Works out fantastic.
Nice. Well, and there are race classes for fat bikes now too.
That is correct.
And so I don't own one. I'm in the market for one. I'm waiting. I might wait until next year until I can pick up a used one somewhere a little bit cheap, because they're so new. It's hard to get a used one right now. But they're super popular. Here in town, there's a course, a park called Lebanon Hills, which is very popular in the summer. And the winter, extremely popular with fat bikes. I tend to ski it more than anything in the winter, but on any given day there might be, a small handful of skiers out there skating around, but as many as 15 or 20 cars with fat bikes on them. So it's quite the rage. Um, we're also, with the fat bikes in particular, running into some safety issues with snowmobile access or snowmobile trail access. And it's a little bit confusing because the rules for access on snowmobile trails tend to vary from forest to forest. So one county forest could have rules that are different than an adjacent county forest, and both of those rules could be different than what the rules are for a state forest or for a national forest. And before fat bikes, it really wasn't an issue. You wouldn't want to take almost any bike on a snowmobile trail. The tread just wouldn't hold up. But here we are, so we'll have to figure that one out. Okay, moving along. Believe it or not, the bike takes more abuse in crummy weather than we do. This is a this is a sort of an extreme picture, but not that unusual if you're riding day of or maybe even day after a snowfall. It's that period of time where you get a lot of chemical on the road, and so you get some melting and mixing with the salt, sand, and snow, and so you're going to be riding through some slush, and you're going to be splashing around a little bit. Fenders are going to help, year-round. You keep the crud off your back, keep some of the crud off your bike. Don't be afraid to bounce it. Some of this stuff will just fall off. Try to keep your rims clean and be extremely generous with lube. And if you've got a place for it to dry up a little bit, don't be hesitant to just hose it down to get rid of some of the salt and sand, and then repeat with lube. Let's see here.
That's not good. Well, maybe it's one of those things where he just has to log back in again.
Yeah. I've got network connection reestablished. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
Oh yeah, I got I don't know where I left off, but yeah, I did get a message saying network lost. But okay, so I went through this thing here. Where did I get dropped? Did I get dropped in the middle of the slide?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Well, you can read the rest. Be generous with lube and hose off the road salt. And then coping with the weather, which tends to be sort of the primary focus for riding in the winter. We'll go into lots of details on this, but dressing in layers becomes key. Like almost every ride, you may feel a little bit cool at the start. That's normal. And then additionally, you need to be concerned about stopping. If you have to stop, be prepared for that. Not just stopping to have traction, but you're going to cool off quickly, and that changes just about everything. Dressing in layers. Avoid cotton on the base. We'll talk about the base layer and more layers here shortly. Keep your hands, feet, and head warm. The extremities tend to be the trickiest parts. Typically fingers, toes, nose, and ears are what bother me the most. If you can keep your fingers, toes, nose, and ears warm, everything else usually takes care of itself. A waterproof outer layer, and then keep in mind you're going to generate some heat. In these two pictures, this woman on the right has some mittens on. She's riding a fat bike. But my experience has been, if you have handbrakes, it's pretty awkward riding with mittens, and I generally preferred the three-fingered gloves so I can keep 2 fingers on the bar and 2 fingers on the brake. Anybody else have good experiences with mittens?
No, I use those lobster mittens.
Yeah, the three-finger thing.
Yeah.
for the same reason, because you want to hang on to the bar if you have to brake.
Exactly.
Has anyone heard of or used the bar mitts?
Yeah, actually, I use those. They're wonderful.
Yeah, aren't they great?
Yeah.
You can wear gloves under those, so the problem that you're talking about is never an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bar mitts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mitts.
they're great, and I actually called the company when I ordered them, and it's a husband and wife team. I think they just make them out of their basement or something, but they're really effective. They're really worth it.
And so you may not even need the 3-finger gloves with them. You just wear a regular full-finger glove, and
Yes.
yeah. It just occurred to me too. There does exist bar warmers, but I've never tried those. Has anyone tried a bar? It's an electrical component to send current and heat into your handlebars.
I've only done it on a snowmobile.
Oh yes. Sorry. I think that's background. Okay.
I have a cousin who wears electric gloves, like you mentioned, except these are actual gloves that are battery powered.
Oh.
And he says those are pretty effective as well. I think they're not made for biking. They might be for hunting.
Probably. I used to have a pair of double D powered electric socks. It's probably the same.
Yeah, probably the same concept.
I shamelessly borrowed this page from the December issue of Bicycling magazine, and I'm pretty sure you can find it as well on bicycling.com. But it really covers about all you need to think about dressing for cold weather on one page. We talk about layers, but the layers are different, and they kind of matter. And so your base layer is going to be your wicking layer, and typically the kind of stuff you'd wear as a cyclist in the other months of the year, head to toe. Then the middle layer, is going to trap some heat, and this layer tends to be, or at least could be, regular clothing to a large degree: sweatshirts, fleeces, sweatpants, the kinds of things that you might wear in a lot of just cool weather athletic environments, but not necessarily biking. You want to trap some heat, and they could be cotton because they're held away from the skin, as long as you have an outer layer on to keep the wind and water away from the middle layer. And these typically are cycling-related attire or ski attire. When it gets really cold, I tend to use my cross-country ski equipment as much as anything. And then remember that the middle and outer layers need to breathe and ventilate, and a lot of the higher-end jackets, of course, will have pit vents, and I don't know that I'll ever buy another jacket without pit vents or a back vent. If you have a longer ride or you're riding to and from work, it's going to be maybe as much as 15 to 20 degrees cooler in the morning than it is going to be in the afternoon. So having that temperature variability is helpful. Manage your midsection. If your core is warm, your extremities are going to be warmer too. Some things that people often miss, though, with the wrist protection can be pretty key. If you've got a biking jacket, most biking jackets will have either elastic or a Velcro strap to tighten down the wrist. But if you don't have that, you have to be careful to put another arm warmer on to cover the area between the wrist and the elbow. Ankles are another place that people tend to neglect, or at least not get right the first time. They talk about half-length socks here in the article, but what I found works at least as well is something sort of like a leg warmer, and just cut off the toe to a long tube sock. and pull that up to your knee. Put your shoes on, and then drop it down across the ankles to provide sort of an ankle warmer. Fingers we talked about a little bit. Feet. Feet tend to be one of the harder problems to solve. I think they're going to be exposed a lot, so you need to have sort of the same kind of layering for them, an outer layer to keep them dry, a middle layer to keep them warm, and then a base layer to provide some wicking. And that can, depending on the length of the ride, can be one of the more important things to get right.
Can I mention something that I did last year as far as my feet are concerned?
Yeah, please.
Well, I took an old pair of Sorel boots, and I took out the insert, and then I took an old pair of clipless pedal shoes, and I cut off the upper and just kept the sole, where you could still have the cleat attached. I put that inside their Sorel boot, and then I cut a hole through the bottom of the boot, and that's how I clip into my pedals. And so wearing those boots, I can actually put in multiple layers of socks, and that works pretty well.
Nice.
Those were boots I was going to throw them away, and never wore them. And I thought, well, let me try this and see if it works. And they actually work. I probably look like a goof, on the bike, but they work pretty well, I think.
Well, no, that's great. I want to see a picture, and maybe you can put a little YouTube video together. The build your own deep freezer footwear assembly.
Yeah, there you go.
That's great. Well, and
I
I think that's a good segue actually to talk about. Sorry?
I actually do the same thing except without the modification. I just have a real nice pair of winter boots that I ride just with the platform pedals on the bike.
Yep. Well, and that's, you get into the clip in versus clip out for when things get cold, and I love my clips, and I stay in them for as long as I possibly can. But when it gets down to 0, or if it's a super snowy day, where the likelihood for stepping off of the pedals onto the surface is higher, I don't know if I want to say back down or relegate myself to just wearing hiking boots, just because I feel a little more comfortable in it. But next time I wear out a pair of Sorels, so I might just go with the modification.
So if you just wear regular boots, though, do you put something on your clipless pedals?
No.
I'm just riding the platform pedals. I don't use the clipless pedals on my commuter.
Oh, okay. Is there something you can put on a clipless pedal to make them flat?
You can buy those plastic pedals that'll just clip right onto them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I've ever seen that. I'll have to.
Yeah, they just have like a little cleat kind of built right onto the plastic, and it just clips right in.
Oh, okay. Well, that's another option.
At least for SPD, I know they have that for SPD.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I have. So, okay.
Another thing is, the new winter boots. The Northwave makes them. 45 Degree makes a new winter boot. Those new boots are fab. I can't say enough about them. They're warm, and I bought mine a half size big. I put on just a regular ski sock like I would be cross country skiing, and I've had no problem.
No problems down to what temperature?
Pretty much. Last year I rode throughout the winter. I don't commute ride. I actually will ride, we'll ride Wednesday night, and we rode all year. So I have the Northwave, and this year that 45 Degree boot even looks nicer. But
And those are called Northway, you said?
Northwave is a manufacturer. Shimano makes one now too. It's instead of putting a booty on the outside,
Yeah.
the boot itself is sealed. The one I have is actually made from Gore-Tex on the outer portion of the boot, and it velcros itself shut. And you just do the laces on the inside. It still has it doesn't have the holes in the bottom, so there's no air flowing through from the cleat or anything.
Right.
And they're mountain bike soles, so I mean, as far as like having to walk up a hill or something like that, you get really good traction, as good as you can get in a stiff-soled shoe. But you can, I mean, if you go to the races, if you go to the snow race, that's what everybody's riding now.
Okay, I'm going to look online at those.
Yeah, they're a little pricey, but I mean, I don't think you'll ever be able to wear them out.
Right, yeah, because you're not wearing them all year round.
Exactly.
Yeah, what closer to $300 than $200 for those?
If you pay attention to like, I don't know if you're familiar with chainlove.com. Chainlove, I know, had the Northwave they were selling earlier in the year. I think they're closer to 200, but I think retail you're gonna, you get what you pay for kind of concept. I don't know what the 45 Degrees are. 45 Degrees is a company now that's just basically building apparel for winter biking. They're out of Minnesota.
What's
So
the
45
what's the
degrees,
website?
45degrees.com.
Let me look.
Maybe you can enter it in the little chat window here when you get a chance.
Okay.
The other thing about the head is layering your head. Sort of a headband is a good base layer. A headband covered with a full head sock is a nice layer to add on top of that. I've seen a lot of people, especially commuters who ride in the winter, then put knit caps on top of that or a third layer on top of that, and you get so much stuff on your head that it's not real practical to put a helmet around it. And then you get into the argument, well, I've got so much stuff on my head, is it possible that it's going to protect my head from a skull fracture to the same degree that a helmet would? And I don't want to open that can of worms, but it is doable. I personally like and regularly use my helmet cover. You get a good high visibility helmet cover, some reflective tape on that, and it also peels off real quickly and real easily too. So if you're dealing with some varying temps, you can just pull it down. And then glasses and goggles. My eyes water riding anything below 40 usually, so glasses almost all the time. And then when it gets super cold, cross-country ski goggles work pretty well. And then when it's even colder yet, downhill ski goggles will cover most of your face. Rules for riding in the winter. Number 1, be seen just like the rest of the year. Reflective tape on the backpack and reflective tape on other body parts real helpful. And high visibility clothing. This guy in the middle here is riding out in the woods and looks like he is going to do some hunting. He's got a rifle on his back, but there's no good reason why blaze orange wouldn't be a great fit on the road as well. And then in the picture on the right, I mean, it's pretty clear here the rider with some high visibility yellow is pretty visible. The woman behind her, not so much. And then there's also, if you look a little bit more closely, a rider on the sidewalk behind her that's pretty much invisible. Just sort of evidence for how different high visibility clothing can make it. Of course, if we're riding at night, Wisconsin law says, and it's just a good idea, that you need to have a white light visible from 500 feet. And additionally, a rear reflector or a rear light. You don't have to have both. You can have one or the other. Though be pretty sophisticated with lighting. And since the winter daylight hours are so limited, in a practical way, I recommend don't skimp on lighting. You can get front and rear flashers now, for about $10 each. Doesn't hurt to have a spare. I used to carry spare batteries. Now I just carry a couple of spare flashers, spare front, spare back. That little flasher on the left goes for about $10, and that little flasher on the upper right, same thing, about $10. So I also think it makes good sense to, especially if you're in an urban environment or an environment where riders aren't expected, double up on the rear. Put one on your bike, put another one on your body or helmet. Now, I haven't personally seen this little belt flasher on the on this body on the right, but the idea in my mind is you want to put them in places that's going to sidestep the motorist's visual filter. As a motorist, the motorist's eye is there sort of trained to be looking in one spot, and if you don't catch their attention early or often, they'll come up on you too quickly, and before you know it, you're next to them and they ride too closely, and so I like to recommend double upping at least on the rear flashers. $10 is pretty cheap. Then additionally, add a headlamp, or two, or four. You can get pretty simple, pretty easy bar attachment, halogens, more sophisticated battery-powered and higher-powered dual halogens if you have a long way to go, or a headlamp, white light, or some combination of all three. So depending on your environment, at a minimum, you need to have a front flasher and then something to be seen. But if you're riding a lot in darker areas, it's pretty helpful to have lights. If it's snowing out, you almost can go without a headlamp. It's not going to help you much. There's enough white light reflection from the snow and from the rest of the environment that the light doesn't do much. But eventually that snow melts and you have dark roads again, and you're going to need a light for the dark roads. A couple of things I've kind of bumped into while putting some finishing touches on the presentation is I've not seen this or used it, but there does exist a little mini rocket eye glow pump. It's just a mini pump with a light, an LED embedded inside of it. So if you're going to carry a pump anyway, you attach this to your post or attach it to your frame stay, and gives you an additional element of visibility. If you want to get super crazy with light, I haven't tried this either, but I'd encourage somebody to do this. There does exist a couple of home kits for building a night light, and most of this is sort of glow-in-the-dark material that you can add to your bike, and I've seen a lot of pictures of these things, but I've never seen one in person. Maybe that's a good question. Has anybody done this or seen one of these?
I have not.
Not so much?
I haven't seen one.
Well, maybe I'll give it a try. Then additionally, lighting, not just for dark, especially in the winter. We have limited daylight. We have a lot of very low sunlit conditions. Cloudiness, a little bit of snow can all make seeing a cyclist even more difficult than the rest of the year. And I personally like to recommend use the front and flashers pretty much all winter long. And if you're on your bike, fire them up. Doesn't hurt to use the flasher. It's not going to. It's never a bad idea to use them. Low light conditions, motorists can't see much at all, especially a cyclist. A couple of additional hazards. Some of this stuff can be covered up with a thin layer of snow, so you need to be careful. If you ride the same route regularly, you kind of know where the hazards are, but things that are not so hazardous in dry or warmer conditions can suddenly be quite hazardous in winter or frozen conditions. manhole covers, leaves, metal surfaces take on additionally slippery characteristics. Potholes and cracks, railroad crossings all get a little more treacherous. Bridges, in particular, can be trouble because they will freeze before some of the rest of the road will freeze. So, a couple things to be aware of there. Braking a little bit different. Stroke the brake softly. Grabbing hard is going to put you into a skid, could put you down. You're probably going to need to adjust your speed for conditions if it's snowy or you have a limited lane or a limited piece of road to ride with. You may need to adjust your center of gravity a little bit more to the rear, and you need to be careful around the turns. If you're on snow or on ice, it's a little more steering and riding and a lot less leaning into turns.
Can I make a suggestion also?
Yeah.
I have a set of studded tires.
Yeah.
And those work pretty well with ice. What I did was I had them mounted on wheels, so all I really have to do is swap them out. It's really quick. So I have two sets of wheels, one that is studded and one that isn't, and that works out pretty well.
And did you buy your tires studded?
Yes. Yeah, I bought extra tires studded, and then I had them mounted onto wheels.
Yeah, I've not tried the. When I was a student, decades and decades ago now, I screwed sheet metal screws into the knobs of my cruiser tires, and that did work pretty well as a student. Well, of course, I only had $6 worth of hardware to buy to do that and a little manual labor. So with the studs, is every tread studded?
Yeah, they're knobby tires. It's a mountain bike. They're knobby tires, and each one of the knobs has a little, tungsten stud. It's kind of round and flat, hard to describe, but they work pretty well. As you mentioned earlier, you lower the pressure because then, the tire on the ground is flat, and so you have more contact with the studs in the knobs. And you can't make really sharp turns or quick turns, but you certainly can make turns with confidence. So I really like them. I think they really work well with, snow doesn't matter, but definitely with ice, like black ice after maybe it has rained and, it gets cold overnight and then the water freezes. That's the best time to use them.
So they might be a little bit heavier and a little noisier.
That's the downside, a lot more resistance. So, it's a harder ride, but I guess, the good news with that is you get more of a workout.
Yeah. Well, especially if there's snow out there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that, too. I've never really bothered. A couple other things that are sort of helpful to keep in mind, especially after a fresh snow. Side streets can sometimes be easier to ride than a main street, even if it's been plowed. You'll get heavier main street traffic and probably a berm next to where the traffic has gone through on a main street, but it may be easier just to kind of plow your way through some unplowed, fluffy 2 inches than deal with lane restrictions and ice on a busier street. Not sure about the studded tires in there, though. Like always, be predictable. The rules really of the road don't change in the winter. Signal when you're going to turn, and take your right of way. This as a cycling community, if we all were a little bit maybe bolder with taking our rights of way, that could be easier, I think, for everybody to take their rights of way. When things, when the snow's coming down and it's piling up, I think it does take some courage to take your right of way, but the law says you're allowed to. And so use your legal rights, ride as you should. It can be a little bit maybe, intimidating to take the lane, but the truth is it makes you more visible and it establishes your right of way, so I think you're still safer taking your lane when you should. Not sure entirely what's going on in this lower right-hand picture though, because it must be in Britain or New Zealand, because they're on the wrong side of the road.
Either that or they just flipped the picture.
They could have. I'm trying to decide if they could flip the picture that way. Well, maybe. Okay, I've got a short little video. Nothing earth-shattering in the video except for, the guy kind of goes through suiting up. Nothing that we haven't talked about so far, but
I did put that into about the shoes. It was actually 45 north without an O, not 45 degree.
I'm sorry?
Before I had mentioned about some of the equipment being on this 45, I thought it was 45 degree. It's actually 45 north is the company that is producing a lot of winter riding equipment.
Oh, okay.
That's 45 north, all one word?
Yeah, if you go, it's 40. The numbers 45, and then NRTH. There's no O.
Ah, okay.
.com.
Okay, great.
And they have the handlebar mittens. They have everything. I mean, they're coming along pretty quick.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
When I went to the race last year, I didn't even know they existed until I went to a snow race, and everybody's got all their stuff.
Okay, great.
So is that like...
I used their Wolfhammer boots, and they are actually warmer than any pair of snowboard boot I've ever used. And I've been down to probably about 4 or 5 degrees, and they work out absolutely fantastic, and they're very comfortable.
Yeah.
So did I get the URL right here in the chat window?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you are. All right, this is last thing I have for today is this little video.
And so I started winter biking. I went, I started right at night. I started summer biking. At night, quite a few of those changes, a little bit more with where I'm living. And other than that, as you can see, there's nothing else too special about the bicycle. Bike in the summer as I want. The biggest thing with bicycle gaming is especially, this is called a balaclava, and I like this a lot because it's the colors are always having on warmer days I wear a skull cap. They call it these, but went down to there was some reporting news today, but their final line, strategies of course in the growth code for this. So I got some very large ones that have lots of inside and very cold most of the year I can get away with just riding on these are work splits. They're either tires and when snowy, knocking tires, tight tires work really well. And I want to go all out. You can have Andrew, saddlebags. These are waterproof set. My favorite thing here is what I use probably many students around. Just an old set like this. These are really easy on the job. Simply right over the rack. I like my gear. In the winter, different seats are powered differently. So if I move around, that gets powered quicker. And so it's nice. But of course, the trade-off is more time. So that's something that we can do that I see.
Gotta love the construction vest. Does anybody out there own a construction vest? Did I lose everybody?
I'm still here.
Okay. Okay, other questions or suggestions or comments?
I have a question. The fat bikes, I've been noticing those a lot, and I haven't ridden one yet. Are those, I imagine, pretty good in snow and deep snow?
Yes, and I'm not sure about the deep snow. I personally don't own one, but there was a caller, someone on the call earlier who has one and had talked about it. Is that attendee still on?
Yeah, my name is Dan. It works so well in the snow. It's incredible.
Really?
And like you mentioned before, depending on the snow conditions, you can let air out of the tire. I actually ride in at about 4 psi, and it gives you such a big footprint that you can really get through a good amount of snow. And on the trails here, if they have not been ridden in, a fat bike can get through about 5 to 6 inches of snow, depending how you are as a rider. It takes a lot of work. I mean, you're going to be sweating, but you can get through if you have the right tires as far as studs, or not studs, but knobby tires, the right type of tires. So they're absolutely fantastic in the snow. I highly recommend it.
Okay. Yeah, the bike that I have right now, the studded tires I put on in the winter, they're 2.1 inch, and it's such a slog. The tires themselves, much less trying to get through, 3-4 inches of snow. Anything more than that, it's just about impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been looking at those kind of drooling a little bit, quite honestly, thinking, oh, that looks really nice.
Yeah, it is amazing how easy you can push through the snow. Now, the bike itself, they're a heavier pig to push, but once you get the momentum rolling, you can cruise along quite easily. I'm down here in Lake Geneva, and when the lake freezes over, we have about 10 to 15 guys on fat bikes, and we just go out on the lake after snows. And at times we're moving quicker than some of the kids out there on small not snowmobiles, but the small little things they're riding around on these days. When they're going out to their fishing holes and whatnot, we're moving quicker than they are on the fat bikes. So it is a great way to move around.
Oh, very nice. I might have to think about investing in one of those.
Yeah, stop thinking and get one.
Now, those are fairly pricey generally, aren't they?
Well, it all depends. A few of my friends have built them themselves, and they do get quite pricey. Myself, I purchased a Salsa Muckluck, and this was a year and a half ago. This is my second year on for winter riding, and straight out of the store, it was $1,600. I have not made any upgrades to it, and it's been absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
So maybe it's time for you to upgrade to a different bike and sell me the used one then.
Well, you know what? If you're interested, I'm actually in the process of scoping out a new fatty.
Oh, you've got my email address. I would add, too, on the fat bikes, I was at the Upper Midwest Mountain Bike Summit in spring, and a lot of activity, a lot of mind share around fat bikes right now, particularly in single-track riding. And I found it hard to believe, but the guys from Duluth were there, and some of the guys from the Twin Cities were there, and they have grooming and groomers, and they take care of these single-track trails in the winter every bit with every bit as much love and detail as a good cross-country ski trail is cared for. And they claim that a well-maintained single-track winter ride is every bit as fast as a summer ride.
I'm not sure if I'd go that far.
Well,
You can get cruising pretty good, but just like your slide said, when you get into the corners, if you lean in too much, your back end or your front end is sliding out. So you can carry a lot of speed depending on the single track conditions, the snow itself. If it's icy or if it's crusty, you got to be careful. But if it's a fresher snow, we've got a place here in LG, the Lake Geneva Canopy Tours. I'm part of the Treadhead Cycling Club down here, and we built about 6 miles of trail out their property. And they allow us to go out there in the wintertime. We don't have grooming equipment, but we go out there in snowshoes and kind of stamp it down. And that seems to work out absolutely fantastic. And we have gone out there a couple of times with 4 or 5 of us in a row and ride in fresh snow that way. We have a lead dog, and we just kind of follow his path. And that seems to work out well. But we don't quite get the same speeds in the wintertime that we do in the summer.
so maybe we just need to try it to find out. But yeah, I was kind of impressed with some of the grooming equipment that they had to, and they try to, as far as cornering is concerned, and I think we need to end this call, but they try to build these things with a little bit of a bowl to them. So there's a little bit of a berm on each side, so that you're going to be riding in I don't know what the angle would be, but at least a shallow bowl to give you some cornering assistance. And some pretty sophisticated grooming equipment out there, but you're right, a lot of these are best groomed, at least they said so, with just basic snowshoeing activity. Okay, I think I need to end the call just to keep the duration of the recording down. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I do appreciate it. You've got my email address if you've got feedback or suggestions on improving this or just enhancing the content. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, thanks again for joining in, and ride on.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep.